It has been a continuing story for almost a week now. The changes Quebec is making to tuition fees for out-of-province students, both from the rest of Canada and internationally. McGill, Concordia, and Bishop's universities are very concerned. The Conseil du Patronat, one of Quebec's most important business groups, is warning that the tuition increases will mean that Montreal will lose its place as a leader. Even the French media is picking up on this one. Negative headlines in both La Presse saying it's open season on Anglo students, and Le Devoir saying we'll end up intellectually poorer because of these changes. But one thing that has been lacking from these discussions is a cold, hard look at the facts of these policy changes. So let's go now to Alex Usher, the president of Higher Education Strategy Associates, who joins us now. Alex, good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Listen, I saw your take on this through Twitter, through X, and it was really the first real analysis that I've seen of these policy changes. So why don't you tell our listeners here? A lot of rhetoric, a lot of hype. Let's dive into this decision. What is your take?
Well, I think you have to be careful to analyze the two decisions separately. So there's one decision about out-of-province students. And that's simply that the government is requiring institutions to raise their tuition fees to an unknown number, believed to be somewhere around 17,000, 18,000. So about 6 times what domestic students in Ontario pay, in Quebec pay. And what that's going to do is it's going to scare those students off. It will make Anglo institutions uncompetitive. I'm a McGill grad on third generation on both sides of my family. Wow. I seriously doubt that my daughter is going to be the fourth generation.
Wow.
Right? I mean, it's just, there's no
directly because of this change.
Yeah. There's no question. At $9,000, I wouldn't have a problem sending her there. At 18,000, yeah, I probably would. So I would suspect, my guess back to the envelope is that Concordia doesn't have a lot of out-of-province students, but my guess is they're going to lose about 3/4 of them. I would think the impact on Bishop's would be about the same. McGill a little less because it's got some cachet. It's got some brand power, some pricing power. The institutions will not get any of the money, the extra money that all gets clawed back by the province. So this is just a pure way to get Canadian Anglophones out of downtown Montreal. That's the main thing it's going to do, and that's pretty clearly the main thing they want it to do. The international stuff is different because what they're doing, they're not really changing tuition much. What they're saying is they're reversing a decision from 2018, which allowed the institutions to keep all the money they got from international students. And now what they're saying is basically they're going to put back on a $17,000 head tax for every international student who comes in. And so at McGill, which now charges, I think, $44,000 for an international student. So now McGill is going to lose $17,000 for each of the 10,000 or so, students that hits. That's $170 million, right? Like that's a lot of money. That's a pure clawback. And they've said, we want to give that money. We want to spread it around. Want to give it to the Francophone institutions, which get fewer students and charge lower tuition to these international students. So I would say, now McGill might get some of that back. It's not entirely clear how it's going to get redistributed. But my guess, and they will get, those international students are going to be reinserted back in the provincial funding formula. So they will get some students some money back that way. But my guess is, they might get 50% back. So it's it's still an $85 million hit to McGill. That's a lot.
Alex, I want to go back for a second, and I do want to talk about the $170 million at one point. But I want to get back to the example of your daughter, okay? And whether it's someone, when I was at Concordia studying there, the friends that I had from Alberta and Nova Scotia and Ontario, like in my program, we had tons of out of province, but from Canada students. What are the options right now? Let's go down the cost breakdown here, because I've heard some people on the French side saying, well, you know what? If I were to go to Ontario and study, I wouldn't be getting a great deal. So what's fair is fair. So can you break that down? Whether let's say you're that student in Alberta who wants to come and study in Quebec, or let's say you're the student in Quebec that wants to go to Alberta. Is this a bit of what's fair is fair, or is there something else going on?
Well, Quebec has had differential fees since 1996. Okay. And the argument at the time, and it's not a terrible argument, was look, we pay a lot of taxes in Quebec, and we use that money to subsidize our own students. We don't think it's fair that people from other provinces come here and benefit from that entirely. So what we're going to do is we're going to make them pay something like the average, what they would have paid back home, right? Now, it's actually higher than the average in the other 9 provinces now. It's drifted higher over time. But basically, it's not a crazy thing to sort of say is, in Ontario, a $9,000 tuition fee is standard for most first undergraduate degrees, which outside Quebec includes medicine, dentistry, law. There's a bit of a difference, right? Because those are first degrees in Quebec. When Quebecers say, "Oh my God, in Ontario you have to pay $30,000 for tuition," they're talking about medicine, dentistry, law, which is what, like 5% of the cases. So I have seen that argument being made, but it's nonsense. Like for the most part, what an Ontario student pays in Quebec for for arts or science or business or anything like that is what a Quebec student pays in Ontario. And you know what? There are just as many Quebec students studying in Ontario as there are Ontario students studying in Quebec. It's about 6,500 each way.
Oh, wow. Okay. So that's something I didn't know, that those numbers actually do balance out. We're with Alex Usher. He's president of Higher Education Strategy Associates and has taken a deep dive into these policy changes when it comes to tuition for out-of-province students at Quebec universities. So, Alex, let's talk about the hole that's created here. I think you said $170 million. Was that just for one institution? Was that just for Concordia or for the whole group?
That's probably the first order effect just for McGill.
Just for McGill. Okay.
Just for McGill. It would be similar at Concordia.
Yeah.
I think it's about 6 million, 7 million at Bishop's. It's a much smaller university. Now they're going to get some of that money back, as I said. So that's the clawback.
Yeah.
That's going to get hit. The province has said we'll offset that in part by putting international students who used to just not count them since 2018. We just haven't counted them in the funding formula. So we'll put them back in the funding formula. For first undergraduate students, that's usually $7,000-8,000. So they'll get some of it back, say half, maybe a little bit more if you've got more of your international students in expensive programs like engineering. So 50-60% maybe, but that still leaves 85 million, 80 million as a
any way you slice it, there's going to be a hole. So what is this going to force an institution like McGill? And, maybe this is not the best time to call it that, the Harvard of Canada, because I know Harvard's going through some issues right now. But you know what I mean? McGill is viewed as the institution. And I know University of Toronto has got some a calling card on that one too. But what does it do for an institution of the stature of McGill to lose funding like that?
It means they'll have to take in more students. And I think I think McGill does not have a choice. I don't think any of the institutions have a choice. They will take in more international students because at McGill, they'll still take in the 27,000 in tuition. So that's 44 minus the 17,000 head tax. Plus they'll get 8,000 from the government. That's 35,000. You know how much they get for a domestic student?
How much?
10,000. Okay.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen is all these institutions are going to say, we're going to raise tuition fees a little bit, and we're going to increase the number of international students. And so the fundamental goal that, Minister Roberge, was talking about, which is, frankly, making the island of Montreal less English, isn't going to work. We're still going to have the same number of English speaking students. They're just going to come from abroad instead of Alberta.
London, UK instead of London, Ontario.
Bingo.
Okay. Alex, before I have to let you go, what's one thing we haven't spoken about? Because your piece that you published online, it's got a lot of facets to it. One thing we haven't discussed here that you want to highlight?
I think one of the things that's poorly understood in Quebec is the two labor markets that universities have and the two cost bases they have. One of the reasons that English universities need more money is because they're competing against the rest of the continent. Right. So like at McGill, the profs are paid about almost 30% less than U of T because they just don't have the money to do it. Right. There's a lot of tiny universities out there in Ontario, in Alberta, BC that pay more than McGill or Concordia. Profs in the Francophone system are paid even less, which is one of the things I'm sure it's one of the reasons they'd like more money. Right. They want this money redistributed.
But there's no competition. There's less.
There you go. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because because for those who are not comfortable teaching in English, they've got fewer places to go. They've got less market power. And so what it means is if you try and put institutions, Anglophone and Francophone institutions, on an equal plane, it actually really hurts the Anglophone institutions. And I know that doesn't sound fair to Quebecers. I totally get that, but it's the truth.
It's the truth. Alex, great discussion. Thanks for your time. Really do appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Elias.
That is Alex Usher right there. He's president of Higher Education Strategy Associates.